All right, we are back. I'm your host, Andy Shalal. This is Business Matters. With me is my co-host, Nizam Ali. And we are talking poetry. This is National Poetry Month. And a reminder that next week we're going to have Mayor Muriel Bowser for an
We're going to have who?
Muriel Bowser, our mayor. She will be here with us to
you got power, Andy.
For an hour. No, it's not an issue of power. It's an issue of her wanting to speak to the community.
And it's great. We cannot wait to have her. This is community
radio, and we want her here so that she can speak to all of you, and hopefully we'll have a chance to get some call-ins. And we have actually a phone number if you want to talk poetry, if you want to talk about any issue really that deals with business even, you're welcome to call us at 202-588-0893. You can call us now at 202-588-0893. We only have time for a couple of callers, so if you want to call in, please do so at this moment.
But we do want to talk poetry. When people call in, let's talk about poetry now while we have our guests, and then later on in the show, if you have any other issues, we can talk about those as well.
So Oliver Bendorf is a poet, cartoonist, librarian, and arts educator. He is the author of a book of poems called The Spectral Wilderness. He holds an MFA in poetry and an MA in Library and Information Studies from University of Wisconsin-Madison. And he is also the founder of something called the Mount Pleasant Poetry Project, which encourages the community to write and live poetry. He lives on the southern edge of Mount Pleasant with 2 pet rabbits and a watercolor set. That is so cute. Hello, Oliver.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for being here.
On Business Matters.
Business of Poetry Matters.
Yep.
Let's rename the show, Andy.
Exactly. The Business of Poetry. So what is the Mount Pleasant Poetry Project?
The Mount Pleasant Poetry Project is a pop-up poetry adventure for the whole neighborhood.
If I hear one more person say pop-up, I'm going to pop up right
Andy,
now.
did I tell you that we're starting a pop-up next week?
Oh, my God.
Never mind.
When did this word come into play? Pop-up. Like, really? Go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Well,
Sorry.
Pop-up is actually a bit of a misnomer for most of the project because there will be poem drop boxes scattered around the neighborhood of Mount Pleasant all month long, really, to coincide with National Poetry Month. And the idea is that anyone can write a poem and drop a poem in these drop boxes throughout the month of April. And at the end of the month, the co-founder of the project, Tamim, and myself will collect the poems and publish them in a neighborhood poetry anthology. We'll also be popping up, sorry Andy, at the Mount Pleasant Farmers Market with a poem box as well, so people can come by and drop a poem while they're doing a bit of shopping on the weekend.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask if will every poem submitted be actually published or be put in this book?
Yeah, that's the plan. We're not...
No censorship there?
We're reserved the right to not publish any poem for any reason. If something's offensive, we don't want to put it out in the anthology, but we are not combing through and looking for the, quote, best poems to publish. It really is for everyone.
So can everybody write poetry?
Yeah,
Do you teach poetry at all?
I do. I have taught poetry. I have taught creative writing more generally. And one of the main things that we believe is that poetry is for everyone. No experience or expertise required. We think that being a human in the world qualifies someone enough to write a poem. And so we're really hoping to reach this project, hoping this project reaches both first-time poets in the neighborhood, published poets in the neighborhood, really everyone. We want everyone's poems.
I have to take a little exception to that. There's some really bad poets out there. I have to say that. And I think, I've heard some amazing poetry and I've heard some really bad poetry. And frequently people who would be able to publish, and somebody needs to tell them this is not going to work out really well for you. So how do you kind of separate the wheat from the chaff here?
Well, we think that there are plenty of venues who will tell people that their poetry is mediocre, and plenty of places that will gatekeep. Our project is a little bit different. We really do believe that, the Mount Pleasant Poetry Project is for everyone. It's not about the good poets in the neighborhood. It's about bringing the community together around poetry, giving people a reason to look up from their phones and notice one of our flyers on the street, for example, or maybe just, think about their day a little bit differently if they're trying to write a poem that day. We think poetry is can be social. And so we're really excited about, tapping into the creativity, diversity, and history that is already in the neighborhood and just lifting that up through the project and using poetry as a way to bring people together.
And this sounds very novel. Has this kind of thing been done before, to your knowledge?
There are a couple of organizations that are an inspiration to us. One is Broadsided Press, that makes posters available for download on their website that combine art and literature, and they encourage people to print these posters out and hang them up around their neighborhood to kind of insert art and literature into your neighborhood in a surprising way. The other is Oh Miami, which is an annual month-long festival in Miami with the goal of having everyone in Miami encounter a poem during April. And they're doing all kinds of neat things like partnering with pharmacists to prescribe poems, where you can actually go and get a poem that has been rolled up and put inside a prescription bottle to look like, a pill bottle or whatever.
Andy, I need a hit of a poem.
I love it. I love it.
Nice. But this is great. But you're really getting poems in from the community, from Mount Pleasant. From the community.
Yeah, we are.
What a great way to get the community together.
Yeah, the official launch was just a couple days ago on April 1, so poems are starting to trickle in. And we've got boxes scattered around the neighborhood at really wonderful partners who are hosting our boxes for the month. We've got one at the Mount Pleasant Public Library branch, Latin American Youth Center, Each Peach Market, 826 DC, Potter's House, Many Languages, One Voice, and a traveling poem box as well.
Are there any rules about the length or anything like that? I don't know if you mentioned that earlier.
We're including half sheets for people with the boxes, but they can go on the back if they need to. The one rule really is that it needs to be original work, and that when people drop it in the box, they agree to let us publish it. So that's it.
I want to remind you that you can call and join the conversation at 202-588-0893. We are speaking here to Oliver Bendorf, and he is a poet, a local Mount Pleasant resident, and has started the Mount Pleasant Poetry Project. The one thing about I think poetry is like art. It's the process is the thing that brings people together, that makes people think deeply and more kind of universally, I guess. And I think that's an important element to it. It's not just the end result that you're looking for. You're also looking for the process. And I really liked what you said there. It's about building community.
Yeah, exactly.
I did want to say when people do call in, think about some of the questions here. So think about what's your favorite poem and why. Or think about what the poem is that has greatly influenced your life. We'd love to hear that.
I like that. The other thing that we do at open mics, and I've been in open mics where we did this, and it really kind of brings out some interesting results, is something called an exquisite corpse. Are you familiar with the exquisite corpse, where the host of the open mic will start with a line of poetry. Sometimes it's their own, sometimes it's somebody else's, and then they will pass it on, and each person adds one more line. At the very end, you read this communal poem. Mm-hmm. And it always comes out really funny, interesting, deep, insightful. All kinds of things come out from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is kind of in a way, it's a similar way of doing it, but people coming from different directions.
It is. I think there's something to not having to do poetry alone. With the exquisite corpse, you can contribute one line, and that's it. It doesn't have to be scary. With this project, you can contribute a poem, and knowing that your whole neighborhood, or at least many of your neighbors, are doing it along with you. So poetry doesn't have to be scary. It can be social and something that we all do together and tromp through together.
I think it's great. Also we'll try to take a break in a minute. When we come back, you have some prompts, which is great. So we can get you, our listeners, to maybe write your first poem, which is great. So we'll give you some ideas and give you some prompts, and we'll talk about that when we come back. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Domenica Jenham, and this is your WPFW Social Justice Calendar for the Washington metro area. Only 2 days left to get your tickets for the April 12th DC premiere screening of Catching the Sun that explores the global race to a clean energy future by following the hope and heartbreak of unemployed American workers seeking jobs in the solar industry and sheds light on the path to an economically and environmentally sustainable future. 7 p.m. at AMC Hoffman Center, 22 in IMAX. 206 Swamp Fox Road, Alexandria, Virginia. There will be a Q&A with IPS Climate Policy Program Director Janet Redmond. To purchase tickets and get more information, visit tug.com/events/93417. That's tugg.com/events/93417. Or call 202-787-5229. Tuesday, April 5th is a vigil for Berta Cáceres, starting 5 p.m. at the World Bank, 1818 H Street, Northwest. Due to the institution's longtime financing of the destructive mega projects, Berta Cáceres died opposing. At 5:30, demonstrators will walk 3 blocks to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights on 1889 F Street, Northwest, upholding Berta Cáceres' legacy on the fight for human rights. For more information, look up on Facebook, Vigil for Berta Cáceres. Also Tuesday, April 5th, the University of D.C. David A. Clark School of Law presents Recent D.C. Criminal Justice Reforms and Potential Justice Reinvestment Initiatives, a dialogue, debate, and discussion with UDC School of Law Dean Catherine S. Broderick, D.C. Mayor's Office Deputy City Administrator Kevin Donahue, and more, at 7 p.m. at UDC School of Law, Moot Courtroom, 4340 Connecticut Avenue Northwest. For more information, visit law.udc.edu/events. Friday, April 8th, the PSL Community Forum on Obama's Visit to Cuba, What It Means for Cubans and Progressives in the United States. We'll discuss what the challenges and opportunities that the normalization of relations between the U.S. and Cuba mean. 7 p.m. at 617 Florida Avenue Northwest. For more information, visit pslweb.org. Email dc@pslweb.org or call 202-234-2828. Saturday, April 9th, Catalyst IPF and Man Up Inc. sponsor a discussion on building community, university, school partnerships. 9 to 11 a.m. at Busboys and Poets Tacoma Park, 245 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park. For more information, send email to contact@catalystipf.com or call 202-230-2662. Saturday, April 9th and Sunday, April 10th, the Black Memorabilia, Fine Art and Crafts Show will be held at Montgomery County Fairgrounds, 16 Chestnut Street, Gaithersburg, Maryland. An education on African American history and culture with vendors, educational exhibits, and autograph sessions. For additional information, visit johnsonshows.com or call 301-649-1915. If you'd like your social justice event included in the social justice calendar, visit the webpage ips-dc.org/social justice calendar, where you will find submission guidelines. The Social Justice Calendar is a public service brought to you by the Institute for Policy Studies in partnership with WPFW, your station for jazz and justice.
We are back. Just to remind you, this is Business Matters. I'm your host, Andy Shalal. With me is my laughing co-host, Nizam Ali. And we're inviting you to join the conversation. We're talking about poetry. 202-588-0893. That's 202-588-0893. And we are about to do a workshop pop-up at this point.
We're going to pop it up.
We're going to do a workshop pop-up with Oliver Bendorf, who is here with us in the studio. He is a cartoonist, librarian, arts educator, and poet, and an author as well. And he is a Mount Pleasant resident, and he lives with his 2 rabbits and a watercolor set.
You like to mention that, don't you?
I just discovered because
you don't have a watercolor set, do you?
But you know what I do have is this fancy iPad. I've got this fancy iPad now that you can do watercolor, you can do pencil, you can do pen. This is the magic. I don't know how they do it, but it's really quite exciting. I've taken up art again.
Good for you.
I'm feeling the art in me again.
You're feeling the art. Feel the art.
Let's feel the art.
Beautiful. So we're going to talk about how do we write poems. How do we get started writing poems for people that aren't natural poets? And on your website, which is mountpleasantpoetryproject.org, you have a list of prompts.
Yeah, we've been distributing a list of prompts and tweeting out one of these every day, and also having hard copies with the boxes, because we really do believe that poetry is for everyone, but it can be a little bit intimidating. People might not know where to start, and so to help demystify it, we've got a list of prompts to get folks through National Poetry Month. Things like write a poem with only 10 words. Write a poem in the voice of a tree.
So what does that mean? Write a poem in the voice of a tree. So for us Washington D.C. business folks, we go to work every day. We're pretty tight wound. Well, what does it mean to write a poem in the voice of a tree?
Basically, it means look up. Take a few minutes to look up from your phone or your shoes or whatever, and
we need a workshop on that.
Look at a tree.
How do I do that?
I know. Well, this is
If I was a tree.
Yeah.
If I was a tree.
Our two main things are that poetry is for everyone, and to look up, because poetry is everywhere. And so it takes a few minutes of getting in the mindset of hey, what's this tree thinking about? What would this tree say if I gave it a voice in a poem?
Gotcha.
And one of the poems that we have received so far kind of takes that up in conversation with a tree. So I could read that one if you
that would be great. This is from a resident of Mount Pleasant.
This is from a resident of Mount Pleasant, and it's called April Oak, Kenyon Street. Under me you stand erroneously, rootless, without bloom. I wish you would move, as I cannot. I cannot stand your legs. Breathe there.
Okay. All right. And who is the poem? Who's the poet?
So this is anonymous, actually. They're coming in anonymously, which also I think helps to ease people's minds a little
Anxiety.
bit if maybe they're a first-time poet. But yeah, so that's one example of people taking one of our prompts and running it with it really quickly.
Because it's taking a risk. They're really putting themselves out there to write a poem.
Absolutely.
So you listeners out there, take a risk today. And think about some other prompts. So other ideas that can help you write your poetry. Write a poem that includes everything you ate for lunch, possibly. Write a poem to your favorite.
Half smoke.
You could probably write a great poem about half smoke. I think that would launch you.
Half smoke.
Andy.
Yeah, we should do a haiku.
Half smoke sonnet.
There you go.
I like that.
Half smoke sonnet.
I work on that. Write a poem in the form of a shopping list, maybe. Write a poem about your favorite food. Write a poem about the objects around you, or write a poem from the middle of the ocean. Just ideas.
Yeah.
To get you started.
And it's important for, a lot of people know haikus now because everybody talks about haikus, and haikus are basically, they're what, five syllables?
5, 7, 5.
And 5. So 5 syllables, 7 syllables and 5 syllables. So it's like on a branch, floating downriver, a cricket singing.
Yeah, and we've noticed just over the last few days, actually, since we've been flyering for the project, that someone has been responding to our flyers by taping up little note cards with haiku on them around the Mount Pleasant neighborhood. So if you're up there, look around for them. There's a little bit of anonymous haikuing going on right now.
I love it.
Yeah.
I always thought if I had a kid, I'd name him Ku, so people could say haiku to him all the time. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be fun if your name was Ku, and everybody says, "Hi, Ku"?
No, that would probably traumatize a poor child.
All right, so let's do a pop-up workshop. All right, so Nizam and I are ignorant poets, and we want to learn how to do this. Where do we start? He's dumbfounded. I can't work with you guys.
Look, I wrote a list of 31 prompts on my website. What else do you want from me?
What else do you want? All right. So let's do one right now.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Did you create that little haiku? Was that you, or did you read that?
I actually read that.
So you couldn't even create 575.
No, that's
right.
I can't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Go ahead.
I would say start a poem that is made up only of questions. Just think of a question, write it down, and keep going. Build up a list of questions. So what's a question that's on your mind?
What is life?
That's a good start.
Okay.
What else?
What is life? Why Why B?
It's great. They can be a range of questions, whatever's on your mind, a mix of the specific and the abstract.
Yeah. What time is it?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Any more questions, Nizam? Do you have any questions?
I'm writing my haiku. See,
You're writing haiku?
disturbing me. I am. I'm writing my haiku.
What else? One more question, Andy.
One more question. Where is the beginning? Okay. So I've got all that.
Yeah. What have you got so far?
What is life? Why B? What time is it? Where is the beginning?
By Andy Shalal.
That's it? I'm a poet. Amazing. I need to publish. All right. We have a couple of callers. Let's take one. Hello, caller.
Is it me?
It's you.
I'd like to share a poem. It's very short.
Please,
Sure,
go ahead.
Please do.
And in fact, I think both of you should be familiar with this poem.
All right.
Havana Sky.
Nice.
I know
Was
that
not what I
one.
had anticipated. Telltale of Orishas in plain sight. Reverenced and revered in institutions of higher learning. Museums, art galleries, Universidad, Casa de Don Fernando Ortiz. There is no shame in having an African god or goddess who manifests the same temperament of our ancestors and characteristics of our children yet to be born. Havana Sky. Today we drink Cuba Libre at the Havana Club. But ahora we must pour libations to our mothers not here and the many compañeros not here under the Havana sky.
Love it.
I love
Aw.
it. And this is Fahima, right?
Of course.
Of course it is.
Thank you for blessing us with that.
Thank you. And
I
Fahima,
wrote that poem when I went to Cuba with Busboys and Poets several years ago.
yes, that was a memorable weekend. I mean,
yes,
week,
it-
I should say.
And I'm not going to hold you up much longer, but it was my reflection, and I'm hoping that, with the renewed relations with Cuba, that I will still have the Havana sky that I envisioned while I was there.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you, Fahima, so much. Great memories, Andy.
Yeah. Could we have another caller? Let's take a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Okay. Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I am Linda Bendorf.
My mother.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, Mom. How
So
you
nice
doing?
to talk to you.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, Mom.
So I actually have a question for Oliver.
Oh, no.
You do have his number, right?
Is
No,
this
just-
personal? Is this going?
No.
Should we get
It's
off the
about-
air right now? No.
It's about writing and poetry.
All right.
No, I'm not.
Why didn't you
So
clean
here
your
we go.
bedroom?
Yes. Did you change your underwear this morning?
Yes. Oh boy.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
boy.
Go ahead.
So actually, as a writing instructor, I truly believe that the most inspired work often comes out of nowhere, sometimes from deep inside, intuition, with the feeling that you're a conduit or a lightning rod for something that really needs to be put into words. And I just would like to throw that out there and ask Oliver, either if he believes that. Do you believe that? Or can you talk about an experience of yours related to that? Or what do you think of that? So that's my question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think poetry is something that, happens in the body and finds its way out. Like Andy was saying earlier, the act of memorizing a poem, is an act of internalizing it, taking it into your body and breathing it out again. I had an experience when I was working on a poem that's in my book where I worked on it as long as I was hearing it, and I don't know where I was hearing it from, somewhere inside me, or it was like I had my ear tuned to it, and then when I couldn't hear it anymore, the poem was over. So that was kind of, I don't know where it was coming from, but it was more like the act of transcribing it, and I think sometimes that is the case. Sometimes we have to search a little harder to find a poem, but they're out there.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you for calling us. We have another caller, so let's take another caller, please. Go ahead, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is called Skewers.
Love it.
Eyes brown. It's a haiku, by the way. So starting again. Skewers. Eyes brown, soulful deep, still glances over counter, culture born with a dish.
Okay.
Wow.
I love
Nice.
it.
Thank
I
you
love
for
it.
sharing this morning.
One of my first restaurants to open here in the city was called Skewers.
Exactly. That was for you, Andy.
Wow.
Thank you.
When did you write this?
Oh, just a few seconds ago. But I was just
See, that's the beauty of this. That's the beauty of this. You can actually, write poetry like while you're
I love that.
Like Langston Hughes, it took him 15 minutes to write that poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers, and it's so moving. Yet, just to pick just a few words and touch people in such a deep way is really quite remarkable.
I have to say this, that I remember very much how hard this gentleman was working. So after I finished my late nights when I was a Howard student at Ben's Chili Bowl, I would then graduate and go to GW, and we would work with Asian American Arts and Media Incorporated. And he always kept Skewers open for us. We would have meetings there. Nothing that we asked for he wouldn't do, and he just worked so hard. And who knew that he would just give birth to so many venues for local poets and artists. So thank you so much, Andy, and for the Ali family.
Oh, bless your heart. Who is this, by the way?
My name's Courtney.
Oh, Courtney. Thank you so
Our
much
pleasure
for
and
calling.
our
You made
joy.
our day.
It's
Thank
our
you
pleasure
so
and our
much.
joy to do this. Thank you so
you.
much.
Love it.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
You too.
So I wrote a haiku.
I think we have another caller.
Can I read my haiku?
Okay. Why don't you read
Never mind.
yours, and then we'll take the caller.
All right, thank you. This is a
Go
big
ahead.
moment for me. I've
Please.
never written a haiku before. I was all alone, singing before the mirror. What if, in my mind?
I was going to make a joke and call it a loku, but that was a really haiku. Thank you so much.
That's pretty good.
You did very well, Nick.
All right, on to our
I'm
caller.
proud of you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
next caller, please.
Hello,
Hello.
Hello.
this is Debbie. I wrote a poem. It's my grocery list. It's called Recipe for a Legacy. Milk and eggs, flour and butter to bake a cake I learned from a mother.
Nice. I'm going to let...
See, that's the beauty
That's
of
the
this.
beauty
Like
of it.
I'm there. I felt your mother. I felt the cake. I felt it's so simple, but yet it really does speak to the heart. That's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very
Oliver,
much.
what do you think of that?
I think it's great. I think, and I love the grocery list one for that reason, because we bring all kinds of personal things and memories to what we're getting at the store, and so I think turning a grocery list into a poem is such a fun almost trick.
And when you
It's great.
simplify it in such a way, every word has so much weight.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then when she says the word mother, all the elements of mother come into your head. You know what I mean? You don't have to explain it. That's beautiful. Okay, we have another caller. Go ahead, please.
My poem was written back in 1984. I'm a workaholic kind of person. It's called Food and Eating. The kitchen, oh God, I'm home. There it is, just like I left it. Stamp out the sand from my sneakers at the door. Where is my cinnamon and nutmeg and secret ingredient to sprinkle on that half of a baked sweet potato? And that chicken drumstick barbecued in the oven for so long last evening. Come here, you succulent little devil. Into the toaster oven you all go. Low, of course. That means 300 while I get out of these miserable work clothes. Oh, I forgot the cabbage and potatoes boiled a few minutes with red pepper and onion. Delicious, you betcha. Bread, forget it. I'm on a diet.
Oh, that's great.
I absolutely love
That
it.
is great.
I absolutely love it. It is so beautiful. And, I was, and again, I think it speaks to the power of poetry and the ability to sort of touch so many hearts. And it's, it's like going to a museum and looking at a painting. You don't need to really say anything, but it tells you so much just looking at it. And so does a poem.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an experience for, not just the poet, but for everyone else who encounters it. It's wonderful.
Okay, we have time for a couple more, so we'll take another call.
These are
Go ahead,
great.
caller.
Hi, my name is Renee. I live in Annapolis, and I was remembering you saying to make a poetry about a tree. So I'm looking at all these tall trees across from me. So here's what I wrote. Here I am standing, as naked as can be. Thank God spring is here, so the leaves can cover me. Thank you.
Oh, it's cute.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love it.
That is
All right.
beautiful.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. So what do you think? Can these people be included in your
If they
anthology?
if they live in Mount Pleasant.
Well, one thing that we really love about the project is how local it is. You know, people have asked us, can you come do this in my neighborhood? Can you bring this across the city? And we are excited to work with people to to figure out how they can do something similar in their neighborhood. But for us, you know, great cities are made of great neighborhoods. And so keeping it local, keeping it specific to Mount Pleasant is something that's been really important. At the same time, you know, we're not drawing lines between the neighborhoods, and we're not, you know, having people fill in their address when they submit a poem. So anyone who wants to come to Mount Pleasant during National Poetry Month and drop a poem is more than welcome to.
Love that.
And you know, you said a lot of the poems you're getting are signed anonymous, but
Yep.
don't they tell you a lot about the person? I mean, you may not know who that person is, but you certainly know a lot about them. What does a poem tell you about someone?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, it starts before I even read a word. It starts with the handwriting. We've got all different kinds of ink on the poems, all different kinds of handwriting. And whether people, you know, have big long lines that fill up the width of the paper or real short lines that go down the length of it, I think it has the personality and kind of signature of a person all over it, even if it's anonymous.
Do you have any favorite poets?
I have a lot of favorite poets. One of my favorites right now is the Poet Laureate of the United States, Juan Felipe Herrera, who has been doing a lot of amazing things with community poetry, and is a big supporter of the ways that poetry can build community.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. So we have a poet laureate in the United States, right? And they change every year. Is it?
I think it's probably.
What is their term?
I think it's more than that, but not quite sure.
I think it's 1 year.
Okay.
I think it is 1 year. But we have a poet laureate here in Washington D.C., don't we? Dolores Hendrick, I think.
Yes, we also do.
But I don't think we've done much change. I mean, I think the poet laureate kind of stays here. I guess it depends on the mayor and you know what they want to, you know, who they want to be able to promote. But maybe that's a question we can ask Mayor Bowser when she's here.
Yeah, definitely.
When she's here next week to talk about, you know, the poetry and poet laureates and what does it take to be a poet laureate? 'Cause
Yeah.
I've been wanting to be a poet laureate for a long time.
You have to be a poet first.
Well, you know, I can write a couple haikus and turn them in. Hell,
I gotcha. Do we want to go and listen to a poem by our poet laureate?
yes, actually,
Sure. So Juan Felipe Herrera.
Yep, exactly.
We have a poem. It's called 5 Directions to My House. So, Mike, if we could play that would be great.
My name is Juan Felipe Herrera. This poem is called 5 Directions to My House. 1. Go back to the grain yellow hills where the broken speak of elegance. 2. Walk up to the canvas door, the short bed stretched against the clouds. 3. Beneath the earth, an ant writes with the grace of a governor. 4. Blow, blow, red-tailed hawk, your hidden sleeve, your desert secrets. 5. You are almost there, without a name, without a body. Go now. 6. I said 5. Said 5. Like a guitar says 6.
Beautiful.
That was great. When he got to 6, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Hey, maybe
Yep,
he's not
exactly.
And Oliver, you have a book, by the way. We
I
should
do.
mention your book. It's called The Spectral Wilderness. Mm-hmm. Talk about that a little bit.
My book came out from Kent State University Press in January 2015, and really exciting thing. I have done some readings for it. I was just up in Western Mass last week reading from the book, and I'll be reading at Potter's House, one of our poem Dropbox locations, on April 26th.
Nice.
So,
okay.
yeah.
Where can people pick up the book?
It's online at the, many venues that you might expect. Also at the Kent State University Press website. And many local bookstores have it. If yours just doesn't, just ask. They'll be able to order it for you.
That's great. The Spectral Wilderness by Oliver Bendorf.
And in case people wanted to know more about the Poet Laureate, Sterling Brown was appointed the first Poet Laureate of the District of Columbia by Marion Barry in 1984. After Brown's death in 1989, the position became defunct until very local and very, very special poet by the name of E. Ethelbert Miller, a very close friend, submitted a proposal to restore the position to the city. Mr. Miller also recommended Dolores Hendrick for the position of District of Columbia Commission of the Arts and Humanities. She was approved and subsequently appointed by Anthony Williams in 1999 as the head of that commission, but then became the Poet Laureate of Washington, D.C. So
Nice.
that's exciting little news about poetry here in Washington.
is.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, D.C. has become the poetry capital, really, of the United States, and that's no exaggeration. I think New York was known for its great poetry, and of course, because of Nuyorican and the Bowery Poetry Club and all those clubs.
Yep.
But then you have Chicago, which is also a big poetry scene, and you have L.A. and other big cities throughout the country. But D.C. has definitely become the place to come, and I've talked to many slammers, open mic types, and poets and others who say that they've decided to come and move here to the city because of the rich poetry scene.
Yeah.
We continue to win the biggest accolades, the biggest prizes throughout the country for best youth poetry programs, adult poetry programs, you name it. This is a city of poets and a city for poetry, and I hope that the federal government can incorporate some poetry into its mechanics and the way it does things. I think that would change the world in a very profound way.
Yeah, absolutely. DC is a great city to be a poet. Poetry is alive in DC. There are so many active, different poetry communities here, and it's really wonderful.
And is Andy, remind me, is Split This Rock, is that going on now? Yes, Split This Rock is starting on the...
It's coming right up. Starts on the...
It's this coming weekend.
Yeah.
It's this coming weekend. SplitThisRock.org. It's a very important poetry festival that happens here in the city. Brings in hundreds of poets from all over the country. Great readings and incredible immersion into poetry. So if you're into poetry at all, this is a big weekend for it.
And don't forget the Mount Pleasant Poetry Project.org, right?
Yep.
All
Check
right.
us out online and at the Mount Pleasant Farmers Market this coming Saturday.
Awesome. Oliver, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Oliver Bendorf.
What a great way to start the week.
So much
poetry.
fun. And we really thank all our listeners and those people that called in and shared their poems with us. It was a special day, Andy.
Yes, it was.
We had a good
Every
time.
day's a special
Every
day
day's
when
a
I'm with you.
special. Oh, you're the best, man. You're the best. We want to thank Mike Nacella, our engineer, Sue Goodwin, our producer. Coming up next, Joni Eisenberg with Tahil DC. And next Monday on Business Matters, Mayor Muriel Bowser will be with us, and we cannot wait to have her here. So please stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll see you next week, and have a wonderful week. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Peace.